All right, sounds great. So I'm Stephen Jesper for Federal Highway Administration, and this isn't going to be quite as what the agenda says. It's not going to be the exact of what was done at the closing of the NATMAC for Federal Highways briefing, but it's close. So there's some slides that are similar, but we have some updates from them that we want to make sure all the Jackalope users are aware of. Let's get started. Okay, it's not working. That's not working. Oh, there we go. Okay, so the outline for today is going to do some HMMS information about federal highways and how we're moving in the future. Some information about TMAS and TMG, value of travel monitoring data, NATMAC, a little bit on that, and talking traffic, and then so we do want to thank all of the agencies who are working really hard through COVID with supplying data. It's probably seamless to you because of you having Jackalope, that we Federal Highways are receiving every week data. And thanks, Laura, for all your work in trying to put all that together, because sometimes the data is a little late getting in, not from Jackalope's perspective, but because, you know, calling some sites, it just is a little late getting it in sometimes. So, but we do appreciate how that has worked out so well. And so we're actually working with all 4 contractors in the United States, as Joe already mentioned at the beginning, and we receive that data, and then there's about 12 states who send it in to us by email. If it wasn't for receiving that data, I don't think we'd be able to do this report. So we want to thank you for that. If anybody wants the website to it, I'd be happy to share that with you. But brand new in regard to HPMS is that for 2022, the percent peak single unit and combination unit values will now be what we call percent design hour single unit and percent design hour combination unit. And the guidance on that will be updated in HPMS field menu. In regard to HPMS 9.0, I've been told by HPMS staff that there's not that much change from a state's perspective. The software will be different. But it'll they're trying to keep the quality control checks and what is being done pretty much the same as they transition between version 8.0 and 9.0. So that's good news for all the states. And from my perspective of what I review on the HPMS data, the data is getting very good, a lot better data. As I mentioned, there's some issues with some samples where the percent peak value doesn't really make sense. Because it's just showing so few vehicles or too many vehicles in the peak hour. So in regard to FHWA in general and DOT future work, the 2021 traffic monitoring guide will be completed this fall. It should be out in October. We're anticipating literally next month. And we're looking at starting a new pool fund on vehicle signatures. And that's really, in looking at vehicle signatures, we're looking at corridors. So we're going to want to have states along corridors, like if you think about I-75 or I-5, or you pick your favorite major road that goes across multiple states. That's where we want to have vehicle signatures to see how well we can obtain the data and use it across multiple states. We think that this is going to be highly useful. There's no PII involved with vehicle signatures, and it'll be highly useful. A number of states have signatures now. There's about 10 of them that are starting to do vehicle signatures, and there's about 3 or 4 that have about 10 of them. So it's taking off across the United States. If anybody wants more information about that, let me know. There's different companies who supply the vehicle signatures. You can do it with magnetometers or with loops. It's both. National Household Travel Survey, which is NHTS, next generation will do continued work on that. And then there's going to be some automated checks for HPMS traffic data that we hope to be able to put into the system at some point in the near future. And then here, that's the link to the report. Whoever's with High Desert, I'll make sure that you get a copy of this report so everybody can have that link if you want to download that. We've been doing it now. I should have updated that, sorry. It's been 18 months now that we've been doing the weekly report, and we just want to say thank you. And then the National Highway Institute course for the 2021 TMG will be out sometime in late 2022 or 2023. And we envision in the future that agencies will be utilizing data from ITS counts, special studies counts, signalized intersections. There's a lot going on with that, getting counts from video signals.
And those would mainly be volume counts on those, or maybe it's not necessarily always the 13 vehicle types. But even at signalized intersections, they can tell the difference between pedestrians and bicyclists and motorized travel. So that's really cool what can be done with that. We've now seen that video counts with 13 classes of vehicles is working really well. There's portable devices and from a permanent location that can be done. So that's really encouraging to see these new counts out there. And then there's non-intrusive counting such as side fire. Connecticut is doing that, and you can also use side fire magnetometers. What we also see as future work that will be going on will be the conflation of GIS locations. That's a big deal where you have your counts and being able to geolocate where those are. If you're not aware, this is something that just came out this last year. And we'll be working at trying to continue to support this tool. It's called a DANA tool, D-A-N-A. It's a database for air quality and noise analysis. So it deals with when you have a roadway, how do you determine the amount of emissions that are there? And so this allows for local calibration utilizing the travel modeling analysis system, TMAS, class and weight data. So the entire class and weight data for multiple years is in this database. So we want to thank all the agencies who are sending us in their class and weight data. If you don't have any class and weight data or aren't sending into federal highways, we will be knocking on your door. It's very important that every state has their class and weight data into federal highways. And that's the website to that effort. So it's not our office that did this. We supplied the data and the methods for how to check the data. But we're excited that this is just another use of the permanent 24/7 data that's inside TMAS. With that, we want all agencies to improve their factoring of their counts, especially with micromobility for temporal and axle correction factors. We will also want agencies to be able to factor classification counts and annualize the data properly. Vehicle miles traveled weighting of the HPMS vehicle summary table. It's very important. If you're not doing that, you should be doing it. It's the way we're using the vehicle summary table that we need to have those values VMT weighted by each state. Coming in the future will be states who are doing individual vehicle records, like Idaho's been doing for, I believe, and correct me, Margaret, I think it's like 20 years you've been doing per vehicle records. And so what used to be called the PVF now is the IVR, individual vehicle record, in the 2021 TMG. And then HPMS 9.0 is coming soon in 2022. And then we want to encourage all agencies to calibrate all their traffic counting sites annually. That's recommended per the TMG, and that hasn't changed. So if you have not done the calibration of your sites, please, we implore you to do that. It is very important that your permanent sites are accurate. And with that, inside TMAS, we're seeing an uptick in the number of volume and classification. Wave motion is staying about the same. It's gone up just a little bit, but it wavers, it goes up and down each month. But we're seeing over 6,500 sites every month come into federal highways for volume. Over 3,000 of them are classification sites, and then we have over 600 wave motion sites. This data has been extremely valuable to a number of researchers and people who need this 24/7 data. And there's also a really nice map. If you haven't seen it, it's a great map for displaying where the sites are in the United States. And this is based upon the data that we have inside TMS, so it wouldn't have sites that were 5 or 10 years old. It would be just the most current data that we actually have information for, and that's available. And we'll be working at correcting the functional class. So we have the lat long really well. We have the counties that they're in pretty well established. Now we're going to be making sure that the functional class on the roadway is also matching up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to be matching these up with what's in HPMS. So that's coming in the future. And the new TMAS future versions will read the 2021 TMG formats. It'll have GIS mapping of sites and a pavement design guide export and a lot of other features. So we envision that that's going to be taking place. And then with the 2021 TMG, some of the major changes are that for station data for the motorized travel, The station data is only piped. That's all you can send in is piped. There's no fixed format anymore. The formats have been all been updated, and we have piped examples now for all the formats. The station format for motorized has changed significantly. There's a lot fewer data items now being stored in the station file. The per vehicle record was removed and replaced with individual vehicle records. We also increased the number of digits for signatures to 5 digits because we really envision that the way to go in the future will be the 5-digit signature field. And agencies are moving towards recording and storing their individual vehicle records and then sending them to federal highways, which would be great inside TMAS. You'd send in one file and it would take care of the volume, the class, the speed, and the way of motion, just one file. So. Inside the 2021 TMG, we have a number of callouts, like calibrating your sites every year is a callout. The 6 by 8 foot loop is a callout. All the important items that we want to make sure when somebody's reading the TMG, it's in there. Integrated bike and ped now, so it's not a separate chapter. And instead of calling it bicycle and pedestrian or non-motorized, we're calling it micromobility. So that's a change in terminology. And the reason we've done this is because with micromobility, then you can record scooters and electric bikes and things like that that actually do have motors that can possibly be on trails and pathways. A new chapter is chapter 6 on other data sources, and we think that this is something that will probably be expanded in the future, but we've now included it for the first time. And then we have updated all the appendices, tables, and examples pretty much across the board. So it's quite a bit new material. Importance in regard to travel monitoring data is that we see that there's new sources of data that agencies will be utilizing. Your speed is signs. There are 7 vendors across the United States, but only one of them actually has this data. So if you want local counts, and I would highly recommend you go out and calibrate them, make sure they're working right, and then you could get some fantastic, if not short term, you could get 20, maybe 24/7 data out of your speed is sites. We found that some sites were accurate, other sites were not, and so we weren't from the pool fund study that we did an analysis of this. So it is a potential source that could work out. From signalized intersections, there's these bell-shaped cameras that are at the intersections, and they're actually getting counts from them, and you can get approach counts, so it's pretty cool what can be done with that. The ITS and TMC data, we tried to utilize that for the pool fund study that we did, and we had some sites that were accurate enough, but then others that were not, and there were quite a few with holes in the data. So this would be a good source of data if you can somehow control the sites and make sure that they're calibrated in the reporting data for all the time segments. Toll systems did provide accurate data, and this is another source of data that you may consider useful. Anyway, in regard to use of traffic data, they're all becoming more important, is integrating the data together with other systems. We're finding that at federal highways, and many state agencies are doing the same. We value the detailed quality data of known accuracy. That's going to be very important moving forward. And so making sure that your sites are calibrated is something that you should have. Part of your traffic management system, your TMS, is that you calibrate it and what those accuracy standards are that you use for that. Collect quality data and use it many times will be our mantra going forward, as it has been in the past. You've heard me say that before. All right, so how traffic data helps agencies. Accurate and comprehensive data provides proper exposure levels for improved decisions. And this is very important, especially when agencies are looking towards possibly using other data sources. Having that exposure data of your permit sites is very important. Traffic data provides the need for roadway improvements, such as for safety. For Meyer, Model Inventory of Roadway Elements, states that by 2026, you won't send it to federal highways necessarily, and you won't even maybe have it at your state. You'll have it available for an analysis, ADT on all paved roads. And that's a big deal. ADT on all paved roads. So you have to have it available when you do a safety analysis. Pavement Design Guide benefits from really good quality data, traffic data, because now you're designing the pavement for what's really there and not some defaults. And then the FHWA and the public also benefit from having that data. And agencies are very transparent nowadays with their data. And so it's very important that you have good quality data. Okay, so the future, okay? This is what we're looking for in the future. Individual vehicle record data will be at all sites. We envision that this is the way it goes. We're building TMAS, which processes 250 to 400 batches per week. We're envisioning that with individual vehicle record data, that will be a significant increase in the data that's coming from agencies. So if you haven't built your system to handle individual vehicle records, I would highly recommend doing that. That is the way to go. For us to bin our data is really not the way to go long term. There's such rich data. You know, you can get gap and headway data now from individual vehicle record data. There's all kinds of statistics that you can get from individual vehicle records that you just cannot get and don't know when you bin your data. The utilization of truck weight data with permits and weigh stations. This is actually starting to happen in the United States, which I'm really encouraged by. I've wanted for years for us to use weigh station data, even though it is skewed, even though there's usually not a lot of overweight vehicles, but it's a fantastic resource for helping us with calibrating our websites. And so we envision that with signatures or the tagging of the weigh stations with probe-based information, that we might be able to help that with calibrating our sites and making sure they're working right. There's a number of new technologies for counts, and if you haven't heard the Highway Information Seminar briefing on that, I'd be happy to share you the slides on that. Connecticut's using side-fire radar for portable counts. That's just mainly volume counts. And then there's video that does 13 classes. New York is doing that extensively, both portable and permanent. There's a segmented WIM sensor now available that can tell you the tire widths. And there's inductive loop signature technologies, which we can, with one loop in a road, we can get actual speeds and over 100 different types of trucks with loops, with one loop. And I personally am encouraged by the one loop system because I look at how expensive it was to cut sensors in the pavement surface and how long they would last. We would typically get between 3 and 6 years out of our piezo sensors. And man, if I could get a loop and the loop stays in a road for 20 plus years, that's great. I don't have to go out there and touch the road at all. So that's really encouraging. I think it's going to be quite the answer. And if you want to share your examples of what you've done, I think there's a couple states in here that are using inductive signatures, so you may want to put that in the chat pod. And then the sharing of data, the bridges, the freight planning, the pavement design, safety, they're all sharing, and our data is being used all over the place right now. So the silos are finally coming down, and we're actually putting the data and putting it out there so other agencies can use it. Like, for example, the data tool. We've been talking to the EPA people with the MOVES model for years, and we went to give them a briefing and said, hey, we've got this great TMAS data. Would you like to use it, to actually for your emissions? And they put a contract around it, and they said, you know what, we think this is going to work. And it was about 2 years in the making, and boom, now we have the data tool that states can use. So it's really great to see that the data that you're supplying through Federal Highways and TMAS, it's not Federal Highways data, it's your data that you send and entrust to us. So that's really great. Just a few things on NatMac, just a background on what happened in 2021. There were over 400 attendees, which I believe is a record for a non-joint NatMac in 2021 was. We had 14 sponsors, which was significantly fewer than we'd had in the past, but we understand because it was virtual, that's why. But we did have 80 speakers. We also had a number of ITE joint webinars that was done way ahead of time. 50% of the attendees were international, and I just want to call out the different states who were part of the Congress Spending Committee. And also, I want to let you know that the call for abstracts is out right now, and it'll be open through October 22nd. 2021. Sorry, Margaret, I'm taking some of your thunder. We're going to go to Boise, Idaho, and June 13th to the 16th in 2022. We're looking forward to being there in person, and we need your help. If you could talk to your exhibitors and encourage them to exhibit at NatMac that are involved in your traffic accounting programs. That would be really helpful. And also for you to reach out to your MPOs, counties, and local agencies to help them attend. Because with Meyer and the ADT on all paved roads, they need to get involved. The locals, agencies need to be involved in part of this process. And that's a great way of learning about traffic accounting, is to attend NatMac. But if you have some research that you've done, if you have something that maybe you did through Jackalope, a report, and you want to write an abstract on that and present on it, in 2020 that we now delayed to 2021, we accepted all abstracts except one for presentation. So you got a really good shot at presenting, and we encourage agencies, because NatMac's all about the traffic counting that people are doing and getting the word out and helping build a better mousetrap. In 2024, if you're interested in serving on the Conference Planning Committee, then you're welcome to do that. And it's in 2024. We're looking for a host agency also. How did we end up at Idaho? Well, Margaret emailed or called me and said, hey, I want to host in 2022. And we said, never done it there? Sure. And that's what it was. That's how that decision was made. All the bosses agreed that would be a great place to do it. So that's why we're going to be in Idaho. And if you have topics and focus areas that you'd like to have be included in 2024, let us know. We'd be happy to make sure that is the focus, because it's really, NatMac should be driven by the state agencies and the MPOs and the people actually doing the counting in the respective agencies, and so it best helps them out. So, talking traffic, here's the schedule of what's coming up. We're still doing it on a quarterly basis. Unfortunately, the one for October 12th is being pushed to November 16th. It's going to be on the National Travel Speed Trend Report, which is something that Lakesh Habani is responsible for. And then those are the other ones that are listed there. We may change out the July 12th one. We're now at as a placeholder for Best of NatMac 2022, but we'll see. But anyway, I'm excited about, there's an October 5th special Talking Traffic webinar, and we're actually going to show the results of the transportation pool fund called TPF-5384, which is obtaining ADT data from non-traditional methods like probes. And Streetlight will be presenting on their work of what they did. Cambridge Systematics, together with Texas Transportation Institute, TTI, will also be presenting on their analysis. They were a validation team. And National Renewable Energy Labs also is presenting on what they're doing, and they were a second validation team. And all three of those will be presenting on October 5th. Just FYI, it won't be presented on October 5th, but there is a fourth contractor called Battelle that will be doing a statistical analysis of the traffic counting sites, and we'll have those results also in the fall. If anybody would like to have any of these reports, Streetlights report, Cambridge Systematics TTI report, or the NREL report, they are in draft form, but I would be happy to share them, because we want the agencies to know about this excellent research that was done, and to be able to use that in your consideration of using non-traditional methods to report ADT to federal highways and other uses. And if your state would like to have an assistance visit, I just did one about 2.5 weeks ago with Michigan. Contact our office, and we'd be happy to visit your state and help you out with whatever it is needed. With that, that's my contact information for my email, and I'm teleworking, so it's best to get me a hold of me by email. And I'm open for questions. We don't have any more silly videos to show either.
Hi, Stephen. This is Catherine, and I'm just curious. This may be this may be an ignorant question. How are people submitting PVR, IVR data to you?
Okay, so right now, TMAS accepts the weight records, and there's a number of states. Hawaii, Nevada is doing this right now. Indiana, there's about 7 states that are doing it. They send in all of their vehicle types, and what we do is right now inside TMAS, for the weight data. So it's in what we call W card format, right? It's the 2001 or 2013 TMG format. And they send in all the vehicle types to us right now. Right now, we're not processing the classes 1, 2s, and 3s, meaning that we're not QCing it. We are processing keeping a special database, but we're not going through and making sure that it's has any sort of quality control checks on it. We will be taking all that massive, which is almost a terabyte worth of data right now, and we're going to be using that for the test database that we're going to use. But we'll eventually read in and quality check 1 through 13 of TMAS data eventually.
So it was a dumb question. That makes perfect sense.
No,
but
it's not a dumb question at all, because a lot of people have asked us. They said, hey, we've got this great weight, weigh, and motion data. I don't know how I stopped sharing.
There's also a question here from Minnesota, but
Yep, sure.
I'll read it. Or yeah, okay. So Christy asks, any comments you want to share on the pooled fund on probe data, especially how it should be treated in systems like Jackalope?
That is a very good question. I do not know the answer of how it should be treated inside Jackalope. I need to stop sharing my screen.
I'll just make someone else the presenter. Just one moment, and I'll just take
there we go. I'm sorry, I saw the button. Okay, so sorry. So that is a very good question, and that is, I think, something that hasn't been really worked out. That's Minnesota. You're asking some very good questions, and I would encourage Minnesota to make application again for utilizing probe-based data in your accounting program and referencing, number one, making sure you reference how, and on October 5th, we'll be detailing this to the agencies who attend that. It's really important from Federal Highway's perspective is that you have a really good report that details, where the data can and can't be used, and then also how you're going to do ongoing calibration of the data to make sure that when you do use it, how you're using it and replacing counts. And a phased-in approach would definitely be advantageous in that regard. But how that data, so let's say you say to yourself, okay, I want to replace 20% of my counts, right? And I'm going to, I'm doing 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 in my state. So for that year, instead of doing, let's say, I don't know, 3,000 counts, you only are going to do, let's say 2,000 counts, and 1,000 you're going to use from some vendor that supplies the data, right? That's what you're asking. How would you incorporate that into Jackalope? Well, we would envision that the data would come in and get processed just like you normally would, and that you would check it against your historical trends that you have for that site, assuming that the agency that is supplying that data doesn't have your historical counts. It's highly likely they might have them, because if you're not aware of it, all of the HPMS data is publicly available on our Federal Highways website. So anybody who wants to get the historical data for the entire network across the nation is available. So it's highly likely that they would have them. But regardless of whether they have them or not, I would quality control them the same way you do them now. You wouldn't have to annualize them because there already are ADT counts if that's what you're buying from a vendor. Does that answer your question, Christine? Is it Christine asking that or somebody else?
Yes, it does. And then the mechanics of how that actually happens.
That's something you got to work out with Jackalope. Yeah, it is. It is. But it's a fantastic question that you're asking, because I think that's, as Tinja and I had an hour-long meeting on this morning in talking about this. Okay, so what is this going to look like with us, checking the data as it comes in? How will we know? Do we need to know? All those aspects of it. And it's a very immature technology. I'll say it's about the third time we've actually seen cell phone data come into the marketplace. And the first 2 times when states would check it, I don't know if you know the history, but from what I remember of it, and maybe LJ, may have some experience with this, the first 2 times it didn't work that well. It was advertised as, hey, this is a great data source. Let's use this. And then people checked it and they're like, nope. And then they tried it again, and then he said, nope. So this is the 3rd time coming out and then having a product. But I think that this time things are different, because the models, number one, are a lot better. Well, why are we able to do signatures now? Signatures that have been out for 25 to 30 years. People have had loop signatures. Well, it's because we have better algorithms and ways of processing computers that can process artificial intelligence and advanced algorithms that can process these waveforms and determine vehicles. Why have we perfected the pixel with video? Because now there's computers that can take all these pixels, these millions of pixels, and they can say, hey, that's a vehicle. And it's truly amazing when there's one vehicle like this, another one right behind it, and you're only seeing maybe a sliver of the vehicle, maybe like 8 feet of the vehicle or 5 feet of the vehicle, and they can tell that it's a vehicle and what it is. That's, to me, that's truly amazing. And I think the same is happening with now probe-based data that we can take all these cell phone hits and other data sources such as weather and parking and all the different attributes that go into probe-based data, and they can get some values that are looking pretty promising.
Yeah, Stephen, and we really need a way to identify it in our published data sets, because last week we had a planning organization up by the port area in Duluth comparing some probe data to some other historical data, and they misinterpreted that change over time. And so my question back to High Desert then was like, we need a way to get this in and have it easily identifiable if we do or don't want it published for certain reasons.
Yeah, so let me, I'll clue you in, because I've heard of conflation, right? Conflation is a 4-letter word, okay? Just telling you, it's a tough one. And so what that means is I have a data point where I say I have a count, right? And then you take that data point, you say, okay, well, where does it actually fit on the map? Right? So then you have to take another map that you might have a georeference and you say, okay, here's where they actually line up. Okay, so that data point. And so this AADP truly represents that segment. Well, what we found out through the research is that sometimes when you have points, they don't line up. There's a lot of funny roads that are very, very close to other roads, and which one are you truly snapping to and getting? And so obtaining the true network and what the count is on that network, and that's a hard part that Streetlight and Siglab and other companies have had with geolocating their reference points, is that sometimes when there's a bus and it's on a side street and they count that as 40 pings, that's a bus on a side street. It's not the actual interstate, and so knowing that it's on one road versus another, sometimes it's kind of hard, especially when there's just a Jersey barrier between them, or maybe not even that, right? And so that's the real hard part is in this. It's not so cut and dry. But we actually did with OpenStreetMap, Federal Highways did with their data, and we were originally going to use HPMS network because that's what our reference network is. But Streetlight was using OpenStreetMap, and the two vendors, the validation companies, both wanted to use OpenStreetMap. So we acquiesced to that because we said, hey, if they're both using OpenStreetMap, that'll help a lot with conflation of the locations to make sure they're properly geolocated. Even with that, there were hundreds and hundreds of sites that were geolocated incorrectly. So it sounds good on paper, but it's really hard when you go actually to do it. I started getting a twitch and banging my head against the wall. It was quite difficult.
Yeah, it's a very, very manual process. But when the argument made that you're not putting people out on a roadway, the office staff part becomes very easy.
And it's a lot safer. I mean, think about it. You don't have to go out there and set the road tube. And I knew a guy who was on the side of the road calibrating a limb site, and he had his engine on, and he got hit with a semi-truck at 55 miles per hour. Now, thankfully, it was like an E350 or whatever it was. It was a big van, and he survived. His airbag popped, but that's dangerous, being on the side of the road, just flat out. I mean, I used to calibrate limbs, and we had 40-plus limbs in Ohio, and I'd sit there, and you're sitting in the van, and it goes like this, and the van would wiggle, and I'm like, man, I'm just waiting for the day that I'm going to get hit, it's very nerve-wracking. So I can understand why we need to stay out of the roads as much as we can, and I apologize. I probably haven't addressed your question like you really want, but that is something that needs to be sorted out. And the more that, and maybe Minnesota will be pushing the limit because you want to do this, and that's fine to want to do it and be able to do it. But you may be, on the bleeding edge of some of this getting it done, which might be really difficult. And
Yeah, there's a really big push from our management to pursue this heavily. So I'm sure the local office will be hearing from us.
Yeah, I think some agencies are seeing a push for this from vendors who would like them to buy it, and it isn't necessarily from the ground troops who actually are doing the counts. That's taking place, that's for sure. Anything else? No questions in the chat pod? I didn't even see the chat.
There's a comment from Margaret that said that they'd like to go this way, but with so many quality issues around low volume roads, they're limited on the application.
Yeah, and you'll find this on October 5th that really both validation teams, and we haven't heard from Patel yet, but both the validation teams, it was clear below 5,000 definitely is not good enough yet. It's maybe likely that at 5,000 above, it might be okay. But like we put in the TMG, and we said, okay, you can go ahead and do a 24-hour count versus 48-hour count. When we did that, you had to also quantify the fact that it's a road that isn't necessarily changing very much, meaning that it's pretty stable, that it's not like a high growth area. So that's something to consider. Yeah. Right. I understand that, Margaret. Yeah. But just think of the roads that are above 5,000. If that's where your analysis and your research is showing that you can do it, which is that's important. You just can't go by the report. You have to go by what you want to do in your state. For those roads that do have the higher volumes, it would be safer for the crews not to be out there if that's found and approved, you can get that done. So anybody who wants to use probe-based data, you still need to make the same application, just like what Minnesota just went through. You still need to make that application and to the division office. You should not be making that decision on your own. You should go to the division office and get approval for any method that you would be utilizing other data sources other than the traditional data sources that are in the TMG and the H1S field manual and the AASHTO traffic data guidelines.